Hello, 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 and welcome to the weekend recap. What a match between Liverpool and Manchester City at Anfield. What an achievement from Union Berlin. El Clásico happened this weekend as well. It was a big weekend, guys. And by the way, this past week was a big one for our podcast as we finally got all four of the guys together and we have some help behind the scenes as well. So we're working toward being more consistent here. We all have varying opinions on topics, so it makes for a fun listen. Or so I hear. I've linked to it below. It's called UNSACKABLE Podcast. It's available on all platforms. You should be able to find it. Okay, enough of that. Let's go. Another match for Juve and another performance that their supporters have just to sort of sit through. You know? Was it their worst performance? Of course not. They beat Torino in the Turin derby after all, 1-0 there. But this time, the frustration will come from how they should have had far more goals. In the end, Vlahovic finished from close range, touching a glancing header in from about 3 yards out. Some of the failed attempts were also down to a massive performance from Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. And goal for Torino, 7 saves on the night for the brother of Sergei. Again, not the best performance from Juve, but they got the win, which Allegri will be enthused about as they will next face Empoli. And a win there eases the pressure until they face Benfica in the Champions League. Speaking of Empoli, they got a 1-0 win over Monza at the home this weekend, getting an 11th minute goal from Nico Haas, and then sitting back to welcome Monza attacks. Honestly, Empoli could have had far more goals as they looked very good in transition. Maybe that's their blueprint against Juve. Sassuolo and Atalanta was a pretty intriguing fixture, even if Sassuolo's form hasn't been the best. They destroyed Salernitana, but followed that up with a narrow 2-1 loss to Inter. Atalanta, on the other hand, came into this match as one of the top teams, second only to Napoli, and they continue to impress me, man. We've spoken at length about how they are sort of a new look Atalanta under Gasperini and how they have evolved from free scoring to more disciplined, for lack of a better word. All of the goals came in about a 5-minute period, 7-minute period when you count the first half added time. The first was a beautiful volley from Kyriakopoulos, tough angle as well, but Pasalic equalized in first half added time as the ball fell to him from Brandon Soppi. Easy finish from 7 yards out. On the other side of the half, Soppi played a lovely ball through to Lookman and he curled one into the top corner. He scored in 3 consecutive Serie A matches for Atalanta, so 2-1 for them. After a lovely performance against Barca, Lautaro Martinez was amongst the goals once again for Inter as they beat Salernitana 2-0. Speaking of, Nicolo Barella was truly amongst the goals as well as he dished the ball to his left to Lautaro for the Argentine striker to bounce a strike from distance past the keeper. Solid finish. He really could have had more on the day, couldn't he? In the second half, Çalhanoğlu picked out Barella. What a first touch from the Italian as he cut inside and slotted it into the corner. Brilliant goal, routine win for Inter. Udinese and Lazio, two teams in great form, and they canceled each other out on this occasion at the Stadio Olimpico. 0-0. Lazio will take on Atalanta away next week, which is one to look out for, while Udinese will be hosting Torino. Napoli versus Bologna. This felt like two boxers standing and staring at each other, trading blows and not protecting their faces at all, just going punch for punch. It was mostly Napoli who were throwing the punches though, or at the very least throwing far more. But still, these teams combined for 46 attempts, with Napoli claiming 30 of them, just to give you an idea of what was going on in this match. Despite hitting the woodwork twice, Mario Rui early in the match and Zielinski toward the end, Napoli won 3-2, but they honestly could have won this 10-2. The chances that just wouldn't go in, or whether it was down to Skorupski or in goal for Bologna and his 8 saves, or Napoli players fluffing their lines a little bit, it was really fun to watch, as always with Napoli. Kvaratskhelia was a nightmare as per usual down the left as he set up Osimhen for what was the winner. Prior to that, Juan Jesus and Lozano scored for Napoli. Lozano in hot form right now. 3 goals in 3 consecutive matches for the Mexican attacker. Another win for Napoli, another entertaining match, probably the most entertaining team to watch in the world right now. AC Milan labored against Hellas Verona away. It was a very difficult match, each team having a strange opening goal, so there was 1-1 for much of it. But a great run from Sandro Tonali, straight down the heart of Hellas Verona defense. Ante Rebic managed to pick him out. 2-1 AC Milan. Tonali scoring at Hellas once again. He did so on his birthday with a brace last time they were playing away to that team. And so looking at the scores and standings here quickly, Napoli, they are on top. Atalanta, not far behind them. It is looking very fun in Serie A, isn't it? Nice and close near the top. El Clásico, Real Madrid were the winners of this one as they got some revenge for that terrible showing from last season where they were embarrassed at the Bernabeu by Xavi's side. Real Madrid looked comfortable in this match despite spells of danger where Barca looked quite decent, but again, the finishing, converting all of that possession and the attempts from around the box into goals is something that Barcelona has a tough time with when they go up against top teams. It's just not at the level of clinicality it needs to be in order to elevate them further. This was the lesson that they were taught in this match. They had twice as many strikes at goal than Real did, and yet they lost 3-1. I mean, Lewandowski missing from this position, you cannot do that if you're Robert Lewandowski, you know what I mean? We can forgive others, I guess, but that is not acceptable in a big match like this from Robert Lewandowski. With Barca 2-0 down, Real's goals coming from Benzema, of course, and Valverde, who else, right? But at 2-0 down, Barca will perhaps feel hard done by for what you could see given as a penalty. Carvajal coming into contact with Lewandowski in the box as the Polish striker cut across him, but nothing given. I mean, I've seen them given for that before, but I would assume that the ref and then VAR would have thought that Lewandowski went down a little too easily. That would be my conclusion if I had to guess. The contact was pretty negligible. Late on in this one, Rodrigo won a penalty for Real Madrid and he converted that penalty for Real Madrid, while Valverde won the admiration from Toni Kroos, who says he is one of the top 3 players in the world right now. After the match, he was tweeting that from the dressing room, I think. The first 3 matches of the weekend in La Liga all ended in draws, fellas. One thing's for certain, Valencia are involved in entertaining matches these days. Their match against Elche ended 2-2. A brace from Cavani put them ahead, only for Permia to bring them level again. Girona Cadiz 1-1, Rayo and Getafe 0-0, but Atleti did indeed beat Athletic Club 1-0 away. Alvaro Morata with the assist for Antoine Griezmann as his strong form continues. What a start to the season it has been for Griezmann. Athletic thought they would be handed a lifeline late, but their penalty was cancelled as they were all over Atletico. 13 attempts to Atleti's 3. Missed opportunities from the likes of Iñaki Williams cost them in the end. And that hands Athletic their 2nd loss of this season. Real Sociedad, future champs. They rolled on with a 2-1 win over Celta Vigo, and guess who scored for them? For the first time since the 2018-19 season, Asier Ieramendi scored for Real Sociedad. What a throwback, eh? Hey, have some respect for the man who has won the Champions League. Sevilla continued to show signs of improvement as they got a win over Mallorca, but it did indeed require an absolute wonder strike from midfield. I mean, just look at where Gudel struck this from. Insane strike from him, with Yassine Bono having to be absolutely on it in goal for Sevilla. Man of the match performance from the keeper. The goal of the week from Gudel in Sevilla's win. Real Betis, they won 3-1, so here we go. Real Madrid is at the top of the table now as we look at the scores and standings. Good competition there for the top 4. United were left frustrated against Newcastle. Missed opportunities from players like Rashford, who replaced Ronaldo. Ronaldo tried to take advantage of what he thought was a mistake from Newcastle during a foul, snagging that ball off of Pope's foot and slotting it. On another day, perhaps the referee would have given it. 0-0 the final there, as it was a bit of a hectic match at Old Trafford. Topsy-turvy, Brentford got their first win in 4 matches as they handed Brighton their 2nd loss on the trot under new manager De Zerbi after that 3-3 draw with Liverpool to kick his tenure off. Leicester drew 0-0 with Palace, while Fulham were held by Bournemouth. Those 2 promoted sides are looking pretty good, aren't they? I'm keeping an eye on them. Meanwhile, Forest, another promoted side, they lost once again, this time losing to very unstable Wolves, who are actually considering bringing Nuno Espirito Santo back, apparently. I don't like that move. It's rare that a returning manager works out. It can happen, but it's not too often that you actually do better than the first time you manage the club, right? Forest, meanwhile, recently handed a new contract to Cooper, just when it seemed like they would and should be looking for another manager. I mean, they're bottom of the league with 5 points from 10 matches. I don't understand that one, to be honest with you. Tottenham are looking like they're finding some rhythm. They beat Everton, not the most difficult opponent, but a stern task all the same this season under Frank Lampard. Kane with another goal, another penalty, to be fair, to Pickford. He came close, but it was really, really well struck. And Højbjerg with the other. Seeing him in that advanced position with nobody around him was strange, wasn't it? Strike was deflected on its way, but well done from the Dane all the same. 2-0 the final there. Some missed opportunities for Everton. Chelsea went away to Villa and had a bit of a strange one. First off, you got to give a big shout out to Kepa, who got a clean sheet and looked very impressive. Of course, the triple save he made, we'll catch the highlights, but he was good all throughout that match. But also, I think that Chelsea were a bit lucky that Ben Chilwell wasn't sent off for this tackle on Jacob Ramsey. Confusing call from the ref as it had the velocity, stud showing on the ankle. It was late. I mean, look at Cucurella's reaction to the tackle as well. He knew it was bad, but just a yellow for Chilwell. Mount also continues his stunning form. He scored a brace against Villa. Mings with a horrid header, which put it on a plate for Mount for the first one. The second, a well-struck free kick from Mount from quite a few yards away. Nicely struck. I mean, I guess he did get it on target, but as you can see here, this went in because of Emi Martinez cheating and jumping to his right. No way a strike in this area should be beating a keeper. Villa with two very, very bad goals to give up. Gifts for Chelsea, really. Liverpool and City, what a match, man. After I make a video talking about why Liverpool have looked shaky in defense, Klopp goes ahead and changes up the right side of their defense. Alexander-Arnold came on as a sub later in the match and switches back to the 4-3-3 with Fabinho sitting in front of the back line. The shape that has treated them so well. He watches my videos, by the way. I talked to him before the match. I'm joking. I was just pointing out what had become pretty obvious after looking at every goal that they had conceded. That two-man midfield with the personnel that they have didn't make sense. On top of that, Salah gaining confidence against Rangers was huge, even if his finishing was missing for most of the game, bar the goal he scored. Poor defending from Cancelo, by the way, allowing himself to get spun like that is a bad look, and I guess that's why he's a right back and not a center back. It all makes sense, right? He can play in a lot of areas, but not there. While City dominated the ball, Liverpool looked great on the counter, and they should have had more goals if Darwin Núñez wasn't being stinky Darwin on the day. Thankfully for him, those missed opportunities to pass to players as well in better positions weren't fatal for Liverpool, but if City had equalized, he would have got a hammering, wouldn't he? To be fair, it nearly worked, passing it to Trent Alexander-Arnold. City had a goal disallowed for a foul in the build-up by Haaland on Fabinho. It was a bit confusing, of course, but understandable in the end. The kind of disallowed goal where you are absolutely fuming if it happens to your own team, as it seems a bit soft, but I can understand why it was called back. 1-0 Liverpool. Whether this is a turning point for their season remains to be seen, of course. And Jota leaving the pitch on a stretcher. The guy cannot catch a break, man. Just when he was getting into some decent form, it seemed like as well. Arsenal beat Leeds 1-0, but it was not a good performance from them. Thankfully for them, Leeds were seemingly absolutely incapable of scoring. How they didn't score in that second half is beyond me, as they were battering Arsenal. I mean, even Bamford completely missed the goal with his penalty. There was a force field around it, or they were cursed. Saka's goal in the first half was enough. Nice combination from him and Odegaard before Saka ripped it past the keeper. 1-0 Arsenal is enough. And with City losing, Arsenal now have a 4-point lead over Tottenham and Manchester City. Liverpool now have 13 points, which is good enough for 8th, etc., etc., etc. It was a huge weekend in Germany. We had Bayern vs Freiburg and Union vs Borussia Dortmund, as all of the top clubs went head to head. Well, that was shifted slightly in light of recent results such as Eintracht Frankfurt and their massive 5-1 drubbing of Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen. New manager, still the same old troubles for Leverkusen, eh? Eintracht Frankfurt, meanwhile, have really bounced back in style after the last week's 3-0 loss against Bochum. Put up a good fight against Tottenham as well midweek. And what's sad for Leverkusen was just how they collapsed, conceding 4 goals in the last half hour of this match after doing so well to equalize. Hoffenheim are in decent form as well, as they beat Schalke 3-0. Everyone gets in on the Schalke beatdown, eh? In spite of their 3-match winless run, I mean, you'll see later in the standings, but they are right up there with the top sides, man. 2 penalties from Robbie Skov and another goal from Munas Dabur gave them the win there. Niklas Füllkrug was finally kept off the score sheet as Werder fell 2-0 at home against Mainz. That's a big achievement from Mainz. Füllkrug has been destroying in the Bundesliga, as I've mentioned here on the weekend recap quite a few times at this point. It looked as if Leipzig were in danger of throwing away their stunning first half that saw them lead 3-0. Dominik Szoboszlai, by the way, picking up 2 assists for Forsberg and Diallo. In the second half, they allowed Hertha back in it, conceding twice in 2 minutes to make it 3-2, but they managed to hang on for that 3-2 win. Also, Köln with a 3-2 win over Augsburg, Wolfsburg drew 2-2 with Gladbach, and Bayern took on high-flying Freiburg and destroyed them. Bayern are seemingly finding their feet this season after a few shaky results and performances, and I think a lot of their fine form can be accredited to the return of Leon Goretzka to their midfield. They've looked so much better with him sitting next to Kimmich again, with their shape resembling the classic Bayern 4-2-3-1 / the 4-2-2-2 at times. And each one of the attackers in that front four, Sané, Mané, Gnabry, and Choupo-Moting, all scored against Freiburg, with Sabitzer getting the 5th late on. The form of Sané, that goal from the edge of the box was so sexy, the way he curled it into the corner. Mané's goal was well taken as well, but the absolute state of Freiburg's defense for it, my God. But yeah, take nothing away from Mané and the way he just lifted it up over the keeper so calmly like that. Borussia Dortmund versus the new future champs. I can't do that to Real Sociedad, but Union Berlin. I need to put my money where my mouth is and make a video on them. I've been praising the club for the last couple of seasons as they look so good and staying up when no one expected them to. Their fan culture seems amazing. Their stadium is so unique as it's in the trees there. Then they went and qualified for Europe, and that was great. I praised their sporting director and Oliver Runert as he made some incredible moves for the club, like bringing in Pifok, by the way. And now they're the leaders at the top of the Bundesliga after beating Borussia Dortmund. Will they go on and win it? Who knows? We'll see, I guess. But whether they do or they don't, they deserve their praise for how this club is run and what they've managed to achieve. So I'm going to start working on that. Their story is amazing. The first goal was a gift, by the way, as Gregor Kobel slipped just 7 minutes in, leaving it to Haberer to smash into the empty goal. Some were getting on Kobel for not rushing to get back up. I understand the optics weren't great, but in reality, he never would have been able to save it anyway. If you want to look at it that way. I don't know. Haberer scored a more legitimate goal, I guess you could say. Great hold-up play from Pefok as he rolled it back to Haberer to smash low past Kobel. Nothing the keeper could do on that one, really. Well, I mean, it would have been very difficult to stop that one, I'll say. 2-0 the final there. Union now have a 4-point lead over Bayern, a 5-point lead over Freiburg, and a 7-point lead over Dortmund after 10 matches. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking through this. I appreciate you doing so, and watch out for some fun videos coming at you this week. All right? Ciao.